So one of the most difficult parts about doing slipcovers, I find when I'm teaching classes, that most people struggle with dealing with the curves. For example, on this chair where the fabric will wrap around so that it lays flat at the seam. So on a chair like this, we've got this extra fabric. For here, it's going to be coming out and being tucked in for the middle. But once you end that tuck in, which is a little extra, and you want to bring it into the seam, which is going to follow around here, that needs to be fitted. This is at the point where we're going to start doing what we call relief cuts to help the fabric lay flat as it follows that curve. So what you're going to do is you're going to figure out, folding this up, I've got the bottom seat fabric that's already tucked in just about inside where that tuck is kind of finishing. So it's going to have more fabric in here. But for this area, this is about where I'm going to want that seam to start. You generally go out as far out as you can for that. So I'm going to fold this up, and where I want the back, inside back fabric to meet the seat and start that seam. So I'm going to push that in a little bit, and what I look for, so I'm looking for the V, which is right here, where the fabrics kind of start to separate. That tells you when you start to put the seam in there, that's going to be a stress point that you need to relieve with a cut. So you're going to take a pin, stick it in just the very edge of that. I'm going to grab both of these together, pull that pin out, and where I see that pin mark, which is right here, I'm going to take another pin and pin the two layers together. This is what's going to act as my seam line. I'll pull that pin out here, and I'm going to feel it and make sure that I like the way that feels, where it's the two meet, where they meet. If it feels like it's not going to be too tight, you don't want it so tight where when somebody sits on it, the seam's going to rip. And you don't want it too loose where it's real baggy. Once I like where it's at, I'm going to take my scissors, come in. You want to pay attention to the angle you're coming in, because you're cutting into some of the seam allowance here. So I'm going to come in kind of straight on this one and cut right to the pin, all the way up. This pin is the seam line. Too many people stop short from the pin, and then they wonder why the fabric doesn't lay flat. Now if you notice, once I cut that, that alleviated that. It relieved it and allowed it to lay down. What I'm going to do from there, I'm going to come in and again find the next V, and on this one I think I'm going to follow this seam line down. So I'm going to come in and see where that would be. Remember, you've got your fabric already pinned down in place, stabilized. So I'm going to come in and do that again. Find the V, take the two layers and pin them together. This is an embroidered fabric, so it's kind of bumpy in some places, but you get it through, pull that pin out, and again you're going to feel how if it feels good. This second cut, you're going to come in and do a seam allowance. So you're going to cut it further out that way, and then cut straight to the pin like before. Make sure you get all the way up to the pin, and then you're going to watch that, how that falls, and you will continue that all the way across until that is laying completely for the entire seam that you want to do. Now as you can see here, I've pinned it down. I did one additional relief cut and then pinned it in, and I did a straight line down. I wanted to follow that because of the pattern. What I'll do next is trim off the excess and repeat on the other side. And in the middle here, what we'll end up doing is bringing that out the amount that we need to tuck in and trimming that excess off as well.